Alright, good morning everybody. Today I'm going to do a video on this guitar. This is an Epiphone inspired by Gibson Firebird, and one of the few guitars I bought new. I got it a couple years ago. It was under $600, and I don't think they're a whole lot more now. They weren't a big seller for Epiphone, I think because it's not as popular a model, and I think, as I'll explain in a little bit, there might be some issues with playability for certain players. So I think they're still available relatively inexpensively, and it's an outstanding guitar. So I would encourage people to at least check the thing out. You know, go to a store and play one before making a decision. But there are a couple reasons that I wanted a Firebird to begin with. The first is a couple of influences in my life. When I was a teenager, I saw Johnny Winter perform in LA, and he did a version of Johnny Be Good that just blew me away. I like Chuck Berry's version, I like Jimi Hendrix's version, but when I saw Johnny Winter do it live, man, that was really fun. And of course, he was known for playing a Firebird similar to this one. It had a different pickup configuration, and I think it had a tremolo on it, not really sure. And then later on in the 80s, I discovered through a friend the band Los Lobos. And David Hidalgo, who is one of the guitar players in the band, actually, he and I grew up together, went to elementary school in East LA. And so seeing him was, first of all, he's a great guitar player. Secondly, he's a great singer. And last but not least, he's just an inspirational musician for all of the things he did for the LA area in a positive way. And he's a genuinely awesome human being. So that was another big reason that I always wanted to check out a Firebird. And this is the first one I've ever had and the first one I ever checked out, honestly. The next reason is that I had this giant piece of rosewood when I was building guitars. Ended up with it from a mill, and it had been sitting around for about 10 years. And I had a piece of walnut, and I decided to make a neck-through guitar, and I thought, well, I think I'll build a Firebird. So I cut into the wood, and come to find out it was the rosewood had a bunch of wormholes in it, so a lot of it wasn't usable. And a guitar like this requires a big piece of wood to make a neck through because of the headstock angle, the break angle going down. And I didn't have enough wood when I was done. And it's probably a good thing, again, as I'll explain in just a minute. But this is a true neck-through guitar. You know, the pieces of wood that go all the way from the back of the body up to the end of the headstock are one piece. There's no scarf joint on this. This guitar is incredible for the price range. To think that a manufacturer is able to produce something so nicely, and when I say nicely, there isn't a flaw on this guitar. I've seen some other videos where they showed like some gaps along this area here. This guitar has none of that. The binding is beautiful, the nuts cut beautifully, where the neck meets where the fingerboard meets the body is amazing. I mean, it's just a work of art. And it's complicated to build neck through, especially like in my case, living in Florida. The pieces of wood that I had were kiln dried, and they sat around and aged for a couple of years before I even used them. And when I cut those thin strips and the relatively thin, wider strips, they went all over the place. They warped like crazy, and I had to let that come to an end and settle down before I glued them all together. And then I planed them, and there was still a little bit of movement in the wood, even after putting all those pieces together. So this one is a 9-ply mahogany and walnut neck through, and then they glued the mahogany wings to either side of the neck with a special joint that you can't really see because of the burst around here, but it's a real unique way of constructing a guitar. And of course it has the reverse headstock, and it's a little goofy to use the tuning keys when you first start, but you get used to them. This thing has a graph tick. new bone nut. It's got the mini humbucker, ProBucker FB720s in both positions. It's got CTS pots. I mean, this guitar, again, for the price range, is really well spec'd out. It's built out of great materials. It's built out of great products. The mini humbuckers definitely have a unique sound. The interesting thing about this guitar, and I've been looking at my cheat sheet here because I have a short-term memory, is that you're not going to put it in a standard case, and you're not going to put it on a guitar stand because of the shape. So I didn't spring for the Firebird case when I bought it. I'm going to keep this guitar just because of the cool factor, but I'll probably end up getting a case for it at some point. I had to get a base gig bag for it to fit. That was the only thing I could get it in that was big enough, because the length from here to here is longer than a standard guitar, and it's real wide from these 2 points, so it won't fit in a standard guitar gig bag or a case, obviously. The thing about this guitar that's really different, if you think an SG feels like the neck is way out there, this thing feels like the neck is at the end of the block. I mean, I've got relatively long arms, and it's a stretch for me. So that's probably the #1 turnoff for people if they've ever tried to play one of these and they, are just not comfortable reaching out that far for the lower frets. So that was enough to deter me. I haven't played it very much, honestly, because although it came from the factory, very well set up for what I think would be a general setup. Like I said, the nut was cut pretty well. The fretwork's beautiful. There's no buzzing frets, even when I've played it down low. But it still needs to be set up, and until it's set up for my liking, which is a little lower action and a couple other adjustments, it's really not something that I'll play much. So at some point I'll get around to playing it. One other thing is I've got a relatively recent acquisition of a Vox AC15, and I think these mini humbuckers will really growl through that amp nicely. So anyways, I didn't want that to go unsaid, because I think that's part of the allure of this guitar, is these mini humbuckers are just sweet sounding. So a couple of sound samples. This is the bridge pickup. The middle position. And the neck, and even the neck, neck humbuckers can be pretty rough or bright, but these are. I could see myself playing on this one, which is rare for me. Like I said, I usually use the neck pickup because I like kind of a bassier, softer tone, but I could definitely do that bridge. So again, this will be a guitar that I'm going to challenge myself with, both from a playing perspective, and secondly, I've been working on some faster rhythm tracks, just to kind of push myself a little further. Robert Baker did a great video called "I'm Tired" that just came out a day or two ago, and I watched it last night, and I thought, man, that guy is such an inspiration in terms of causing you as a guitar player to think about how you got started, all the things you went through when you got started, how hard it was to learn how to play initially. And I've got some issues that make it harder for me to play now, but you just got to work through that. You just got to, stay on top of it. So with that, I'm going to do a little song that I wrote sometime in the 80s, and it was kind of with the thought in mind of Johnny Winter and Los Lobos. So here we go. Never had no pain. Well, you can't sing the blues if you ain't never had no pain. And when the blues they like a rolling freight train. You gotta go down long and dusty roads. You gotta go down some long and dusty roads. If you meet the devil on the way, baby, you gotta hold on to your soul. Like a monkey on your back, the blues will hang with you for a long, long time. Like a monkey on your back, the blues will hang with you for a long, long time. And if you shake the blues, baby, surely gonna blow your mind. Well, you can't sing the blues if you ain't never had no pain. Lord, you can't sing the blues if you ain't never had no pain. 'Cause the blues, when they hit you, it's like a rolling freight train.